Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us. My name is Danielle Aguas, and I'm the VP of Client Engagement at Center for Executive Excellence. And I'm joined here today by my friend and mentor,
Aw.
Sheri Nasim. She's the founder and CEO of Center for Executive Excellence. And we're both excited to join you virtually today. And I know we have people here on the call from San Diego to Utah to even Philadelphia. So welcome. One of the things, though, that we're hearing a lot from the leaders we serve is how chaotic, complex, and pressure inducing this time has gotten really fast. And in the midst of these challenging times, our team decided let's launch a series of webinars to help people lead virtually during this new normal time we're living in for the unforeseeable future. Our hope is to provide weekly, sometimes bi-monthly webinars where we're interviewing leaders in different roles, industries, many with different sets of challenges, but also challenges that many of us can resonate with right now. But all of our future guests will bring a unique perspective about how to lead through uncertainty so that you and your team come out of this stronger. So today's webinar is on the 3 things you should be doing now to lead your team through this crisis. I was recently reminded of a quote by Patrick Lencioni. He shared it, it's actually from Samuel Johnson, and he says, people need to be reminded more than they need to be instructed. And during times of crisis and when the environment is so complex, people especially need reminders about what's most important right now, what we call getting back to the basics. So just some quick housekeeping before we get started. We are recording today's webinar, and we'll share the recording with anyone who's registered, so be sure to be on the lookout for that. I also want to mention that we're using Zoom's webinar feature to host today's event. So you will be on mute and your video is turned off as a participant. So only myself and Sheri have the ability to have video and mics turned on. You'll notice that you have a Q&A button on your screen's dashboard. Feel free to submit any questions you have for Sheri during this webinar, and during the second half, I'll actually ask her as many of those questions as time will allow. But we'll be sure to end no later than 12 noon Pacific Standard Time so that you can all get back to your regularly scheduled program. So with that, here's Sheri.
Hey, Danielle, thank you so much. That was really fun. Let me do a quick stop video for you right now. Did that work?
It did.
Awesome. Thank you so much for teeing us up and for everything that you've done to help make this a reality. And I really do appreciate each and every one of you joining us today. Welcome to the world headquarters of Center for Executive Excellence. We want to I just really want to acknowledge the fact that I appreciate the fact that you've taken time out of your day to invest in yourself, to give yourself this 1 hour to gain some tools and insights about how to lead in this new normal. You're probably flooded with a lot of free resources right now, so we're honored that you carved out this time and you're joining us. So it's not going to be perfect, believe me, but we've set aside perfectionism and control for being present and leaning in. So that's our new normal. That's the mantra that we are working with, and we'll work out the kinks as we go. So thank you for hanging in there with us and being part of our inaugural webinar series today. I'm really excited about the ones that we have in the future. I know some amazing leaders who have navigated through turbulent times before. So today is just about setting the stage, working out the kinks with our technology, and getting comfortable with these tools. And then hopefully next week we'll start pivot to having some incredible speakers, some of my very dearest friends and mentors, coaches, people that I really look up to. So I'm excited about that. So with that, also, if you hear anything in the background noise, if you hear a baby crying, a dog barking, a doorbell ringing, what have you, that's all the part of the fabric of our new normal. And we'll deal with those as they come before they reach code red. So our goal for today is to share some actionable advice with you to help you lean in as a leader and remind you of the basics, as Danielle said. Because whether you're a CEO or a regional manager or a team leader or an influence of people of anywhere, and that basically applies to all of us, there are some key principles that we can apply to help our organizations emerge better and stronger through this crisis. So in fact, I submit that if you stick to those basics, your team will be more cohesive and for having gone through this together. So let's get started with 3 things that you should be doing now to lead your team through this crisis. I'm going to say this, the numbers fairly slow, so if you're taking notes, you can write them down. But also, as Danielle said, we'll be providing you with a copy of this webinar later. So take notes or not, however you learn better, you do it your way. So number 1, build a cohesive leadership team. Number 1, build a cohesive leadership team. Right now, your team needs to be more emotionally cohesive than it ever has before. And that cohesion requires one key ingredient as the foundation for everything else, and that ingredient is trust. Whether you are a follower of Stephen M.R. Covey's The Speed of Trust, or you like Patrick Lencioni's model for the 5 dysfunctions of a team, you know that trust is like the oil that keeps the engine running. And if you try to drive your internal combustion engine car without oil, then the engine will seize because we don't have something to lubricate it and keep it from friction. That sounded like I didn't know what I was talking about. That's all I know about mechanics and oil. Anyway, actually had to look that up. But anyway, just like the lack of oil in a car, low trust on a team causes friction, and it hides hidden agendas. It causes interpersonal conflict, interdepartmental rivalries, win-lose thinking, defensive and protective communication. And the bottom line is that low trust slows everything down. Every decision, every communication, every relationship needs trust to thrive. And on the other hand, when you have high trust, that helps us go faster. So both Covey and Lencioni agree that high trust increases speed and helps you to deliver results. And right now we have to deliver results fast. So take a minute, if you will, to think of a person that you have a high trust relationship. Could be a boss or a coworker, a customer, a spouse, parent, sibling, anyone. And just describe that relationship for a minute to yourself. What's it like? How do you feel? How well do you communicate with each other? How quickly can you get things done? And how much do you enjoy that relationship? Now, think of a person with whom you have a low trust relationship with and repeat those questions. It could be anybody from work or home, but then think about that relationship and what that feels like. How's your communication with someone that you don't trust? Does it flow freely and quickly? Do you give each other the benefit of the doubt? Or do you feel like you're constantly walking on landmines and being misunderstood and having to explain yourself? Do you work together to get things done quickly, or does it take a really extraordinary amount of time and energy, which we don't have right now, to finally reach an agreement or execution? Do you enjoy this relationship, or do you find it tedious and cumbersome and draining? So the difference between high trust and low trust relationships is palpable. Take communication. In a high trust relationship, you can say the wrong thing and people will get your meaning. But in a low trust relationship, you can be very measured and even precise, and they'll still misinterpret you. We all see that happening every day. If you could even begin to imagine the difference it would make if you were able to increase the amount of trust in interpersonal communications among your leadership team, you're really going to be able to make a big difference. You've got to be able to trust each other. You've got to be on the same page with each other. And you have to work to do that. In fact, that phrase of you have to slow down to go fast is the underlying principle here. You have to slow down to go fast. So take some time to make sure that you are doing everything you can to build a cohesive leadership team. You can have a super simple exercise like just getting to know one another and getting to be more vulnerable with each other, like something like a personal histories exercise. So it's a low risk exercise. It requires nothing more than going around the virtual table during a meeting and having the team members each answer the same simple short questions about themselves. It doesn't have to be overly sensitive or too personal, but something like, how many siblings do you have? Or where did you grow up? Or what are some unique hobbies that you have that maybe we don't know about? What was your first job? What was your first car? I love these openers because they're really icebreakers, and we all had a first job, and hopefully we all had a first car, and we can relate to each other more as human beings when we get to know each other a little bit better. So it's a super simple exercise that's really going to help you start to build those relationships that you're going to need to build trust. Because if you don't do that, what will happen is that you won't be able to show vulnerability with each other. We're going to make mistakes. We make huge mistakes all the time, and you're going to be able to have to just roll with it, and don't want to hide mistakes, right? So we want to be able to ask for help. If we're not able to get what we want to be able to reach out to our team member and ask for help when we need it, because we're all a little bit vulnerable right now, both personally and professionally. And sometimes we may just need time, or we may need talent or some other resource that someone on our team has. We need to be vulnerable with each other, okay? Accept constructive feedback. You know, if we trust each other, then we can open ourselves a little bit more to having somebody give us critique. Especially in this day and age, we're all trying to pivot right now, and we're trying to conduct business on a regular basis, but we're using it in a whole new world with new tools. And so we're going to make mistakes. And so we're going to need some feedback from our team members about how we can improve that next time. Instead of getting defensive, we probably are going to make some mistakes. But if we're defensive about it and we can't face criticism, we're not going to be able to have a next iteration of that. So having trust helps us be open to constructive criticism, and also to give constructive criticism or feedback. And having a high trust level, it really helps you focus on the goal and not on personal politics. And also, when you have high trust, if you think about being in a relationship and everybody on the team is someone that you have a high trust relationship with, then you're going to look forward to meetings and having the opportunity to work together collectively and lead your organization through these days so that you can emerge stronger than ever. I could spend a whole day on trust. We have workshops that we've done on trust, and it's really, really critical. So I want to move on to the second point, but it's really important that you remember that this is a fundamental building block of every organization, and it starts with your executive team, okay? All right, number two, have a temporary rallying cry. Number two, have a temporary rallying cry. Here's what I mean. One of the hardest things for us to do right now is focus. I was just thinking about yesterday morning, I decided that I was going to cook a pot of soup for us for lunch, and also for my husband to take to his mother's house, because he's working at her house every afternoon because she's by herself and elderly. So I started out by, okay, there's a webinar that I want to check into at 10 o'clock, and I've got a 1 o'clock rehearsal for our Zoom meeting with Danielle today, and I think that I want to keep up, stay update on my email, and I've got a proposal that I'm going to work on that I need to get out this afternoon. But it's a pot of soup. It's one pot. What's the big deal? I'll be ready by 11:30. Boom. So I started out, and I realized that I've got I've been saving all these vegetable clippings from my cooking, and they're all in a big freezer bag. So I think I've got time. I'll make some vegetable stock. I get my biggest pot out that I have in my kitchen. I put it on stove, and I fill it with water, and I start pouring frozen vegetables in it. And of course, water splashes everywhere. Oh, and the Lencioni thing is coming on in a minute. So I get the vegetable stock going on the stove, and I check in with the Lencioni video. And midway through that, I see something about whether Boris Johnson has, made it through intensive care overnight. And oh, here's a pop-up about the CARES Act that I need to be following, about the Small Business Administration loans, and the and the water and the vegetable stock is going on on the stove. And then I realize, oh, I don't have any fire roasted tomatoes for this recipe. No worries. I just saw a video a few days ago about how to make your own fire roasted tomatoes. I'll make that. So now, this is requiring a whole nother recipe, really good recipe, by the way. I'd be happy to share it with you. The point is, what should have taken an hour and a half max in one pot for a soup that I've made many, many, many times, by the time I finished it, the kitchen looked like I had just made Thanksgiving dinner. So it's 11:30. My husband and I eat. I put some soup in a bowl and I send him off to see his mother. And then the kitchen is a mess. I've got to clean up the kitchen and take a shower before I connect with Danielle at 1 o'clock on our Zoom. So I'm just rushing like crazy. I get here to my home office and I sit down and I click on Zoom right as it's supposed to start. And I realize that I started this Zoom, the one we're supposed to go live with today, that we've told everybody, we broadcast all over social media. And I freeze. And I picked up my phone and I texted Danielle, said, I just started our Zoom meeting and I don't know, do I stop it? What's going to happen? And she goes, hang on, I'm on it. Of course, thank God for Danielle. And luckily we were able to work it out and it saved the day. But we've got so much going on. We've got so much going on, so much new stuff that we're trying to do. We cannot bifurcate ourselves between personal and professional. We weren't doing it very well before this, but now we're spouses and family members and neighbors, and we have to take care of each other and still show up to lead our team and stay focused and move forward and lean in. So there's a lot of noise going on out there right now. And if you don't have a temporary rallying cry, something really clear that people can focus on right now about what do we need to be doing in the short term, the next 2 months, say, what are our strategic objectives for the next 2 months to get us through this and make sure that we're stronger for it when we get out of this, okay? Or at least whole when we get out of this. Something that is not only a motto, not just a motto, it could be something like save jobs, no layoffs. It could be get more cohesive and innovate. Something like that. Come up with some big rallying cry that people understand this is what we're doing. It's going to cut through all of that ambient noise that is coming to us from so many other areas. You've got to be able to help focus your team and cut through that noise. So once you decide on your rallying cry, then come up with 3 to 5 key objectives that you can actually follow and measure in a very simple schema, like a red, yellow, green stoplight schema. So 3 to 5 things that we need to do to get ourselves and focused and clear through the next 2 months. And let that be our rallying cry. And then let's measure how we're doing, who's doing what, to make sure that we're tracking those. You can use a simple PowerPoint presentation. You can do it in Excel. There's even an online cloud-based software system called Spider Strategies. I'd be happy to give you the link to that. I use that with one of my big nonprofit clients. It's very inexpensive, easy to use. Plus it's cloud-based, so everybody can log in and it's not just sitting on one person's desktop. So whatever it is you use, that's not as important. Don't go out and rush and do a big, research project on what to do. Just, you're going to have to use what you've got. Use what you have and focus on the 3 to 5 key objectives so that you can achieve whatever it is that you've decided is your rallying cry for the next 2 months. Okay, so Team cohesion with the leadership team is absolutely critical, and a temporary rallying cry. This is beyond your strategic plan that you put together at the beginning of this calendar year or your fiscal year. This is a temporary, this is what we've got to do to get through the next few weeks. Okay? Sorry, I like this part. Number 3, and I really love this one too, is simply use your online meeting tools to over communicate. Some of you are still working together. Most of us are either in some kind of a mixture, a blend of on-site and remote employees. Some of us are completely remote, but we're all dependent on these online communication tools for the new normal for the foreseeable future. So let's get used to this kind of communication. Let's be human with each other and vulnerable if we're having technical difficulties, but really start to think about using Zoom or Cisco WebEx, whatever your favorite tool is, to stay virtually connected. Zoom itself has hosted a webinar just yesterday, I believe, to address some of the issues that they've had about things like Zoom bombing. So if you haven't heard about that, you want to make sure that you're aware of the security measures that you'll need to have in place as you decentralize your communications. Danielle, we can certainly share that webinar link and that article, that Inc. article about Zoom bombing last week, and any other tools that we find along the way. But back to meetings. Focus. Okay. Focus. It's important to avoid meeting stew. Meeting stew. What does that mean? As you shift from in-person to virtual meetings, what I mean is, just like you have meetings in the office, that some are tactical, some are strategic, some are administrative, some are team building. You'll want to parse your Zoom meetings into these more clearer contexts. This is not to say that you shouldn't check on each other during every meeting and just say a quick, how are you doing? Any major changes that we should be aware of since yesterday? Tell me something funny. But don't let your meetings get super drifty like that. I think it's really important to think about clear context, because we are still working together and we are still building and leading our teams through this. So you can't throw everything into every meeting and expect to come out with something that's clear and not garbled. There was a great article in Harvard Business Review this morning that I'll be happy to share with you. But here are some other suggestions that you might think about. One that I love and I think is really helpful are the 10-minute check-ins, like stand-ups or huddles that you might have when you're in person. Every morning, gather your team together, regardless of where your team is on the org chart, and check in with each other. What are our priorities for today? What is it that we need to get accomplished? Who's going to be drifting off and having a pot of soup explode on them in the middle of the day, and how do we wrangle back and how do we cover for each other? Let's all be human with each other right now, but checking in with each other every morning will help. Okay, focus, instead of, I haven't heard anything, I haven't gotten an email from my boss, so that's not okay. Check in every day. Checkouts are something that some organizations are also doing. I like this idea as well. How did you do? What progress did you make? What challenges did you have? How do we set you up for success tomorrow? Were there any other personal changes in your life that we should know about so that we don't expect you on tomorrow's check-in? That's okay. That's okay. You want to have, I would suggest that you have a strategy execution meeting around this temporary rallying cry. That could be a 3 to 4 hour meeting where you sit down and think, what is our name? Get really clear about what your temporary rallying cry is for the next 8 weeks, 2 months. And then what are the 3 to 5 key objectives that are going to help us get there? How do we measure those? Again, without being overly fanatical about it. Don't go out and buy a robust system for quantifying it. But make sure that you all know what the 3 to 5 key objectives are around the rallying cry so that you can cut through the noise and help your team focus on the most important things that you want to do. You could also have like a weekly tactical meeting where everybody gets on and everybody's just not just the 3 to 5 key objectives, but anything else that's going on peripherally. financially, operations wise, customer wise, that sort of thing, just things that are happening. You may want to set aside a whole, time a week, every week to do that. Another thing I heard just a couple of days ago that I really love is one CEO just opened up Zoom and sat and worked at her desk for half a day or an entire day, and just gave all of the employees the link to that Zoom so that they could pop in and pop out, just like an open door policy that you might have at the office. And so just letting your team know that it's okay to interrupt you while you're at home, if that's where you're working from. It's the same thing as an open door policy, and you'd be surprised how people really appreciate the fact that you're there for them, and just let them know that, hey, it's okay if you just want to share an anecdote with me. I'm working, and this is your time. I'm going to get what I need to do done. It's not going to be a heavy project where I can't be interrupted. But hey, my door's open. Come and talk to me. I want to hear from you. What's going on? I love that idea. And virtual happy hours. Heck, we still need to get together as a team. We need to laugh together. We need to play together. Laughter and play and challenges where we can play games together. Those are all great stress relievers. And no matter how much we have our act together right now, we all need a little bit of stress relief. So let's mix it up. Make sure that we don't have meeting stew. Don't give people the impression that they're bothering you because you're working from home. Let them know that, hey, this is the new normal. Lean in, pivot, and communicate. So I'm just going to do a quick recap, and then I'll bring Danielle back on and see if you have any questions from today. I hope that was clear. Okay, so 3 things you should be doing now to lead your team through this crisis. Number 1, build a cohesive leadership team grounded in trust. Build trust. Go slow to move fast, okay? Take the time to do this. It's really, really critical right now. You can do it with simple exercises, or you can go online and do a Gallup strengths, get your top 5 Gallup strengths and start working with each other on that. And you can get a coach to help you with that. Whatever it takes to start to make sure that you're building trust with your leadership team. Imperative. Number 2, have a temporary rallying cry. You're going to have to cut through the clutter of all of the breaking news 24 hours a day, and all the meals that we're cooking, and all the family members who are popping in, and all the craziness that's happening right now. You're going to have to get really clear about what we're going to do to get through the next 2 months. Rallying cry plus, don't make it just something you slap on the wall. Boil it down to 3 to 5 key objectives, and then start working through those key objectives on a regular basis. Focus, 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 clarity, 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 and communicate what it is that you're doing. And then pivot to using a tool like Zoom to, number 3, use online meeting tools to over-communicate. Lean in to these online meeting tools. Make sure that you understand how the properties of Zoom or Cisco WebEx in terms of security. But once you do that, really think about avoiding meeting stew, and making sure that whatever meetings that you have, and start implementing some regular ones, are clear about what the context is for this meeting and what we're trying to achieve during this meeting. The Harvard Business Review article from this morning that we can share a link to, or a copy of, to you if we need to, Danielle, talked about how on Mondays we all do this, and on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday we cover that, and on Friday it's another thing. So you might use it in terms of days of the week. I like that idea too. So lots of great ideas. We curate the latest in every idea as much as we can on a daily basis. That's what we're here for. That's what we're here for, to try to dig through all of the noise and bring you the very best of what we think that are going to help you not only come out alive, but come out better and stronger, and emerge a much more cohesive team. And you'll be happy that you went through this together when this is over. Okay? That's what we've got. I'm going to invite Miss Danielle back. And here we go.
Hi,
Hi.
everyone. Back. Thank you, Sheri. That was really great. I appreciated the recap too at the end. We have a couple questions for you. I'm going to start with this question. How do you proceed with corporate goals set at the beginning of the year in light of these changes? And should we come up with new strategies, in other words, to achieve those goals?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that when I started working as a director of strategic and operational planning for a multi-million-dollar company several years ago, I would go to strategy execution conferences because I'm a geek and that's where my people were. And there were, peaks and valleys in business cycles at the time too. And part of what people were realizing is that it's great to have a strategy for the good times, but you also have some risk. You've got to do your work to build in what if we, lose 30%, this year? What is our mitigation plan to manage that risk? And then what does that do to the goals and objectives that we set out at the beginning of the year if we get weaker? And so the great thing about tracking, naming your 3 to 5 key objectives uh, and measuring those as you go along in terms of your strategic plan, now you can turn off and freeze some of those. You want to keep your financial, goals. Obviously, you want to track those on a regular basis. And there are some things that are business critical that you've got to, have to remain compliant, for example. But you can gray those out just during this next 2 months or the foreseeable future and turn some new ones on for temporarily. And then when this passes, you turn those off and you pick up with the ones that you grayed out and pick back up. You may have set aside a big budget for an initiative that you were going to launch in the summer, and that's probably not going to happen right now. So pull back on that project and redirect your forces to work on the 3 to 5 key objectives. Does that help?
Very helpful. Yeah, that course correction tip is really important. The other question we got was, how do you deal with furloughed employees?
Yeah, furloughed employees. Um, if you've ever been laid off, it's such a lonely place to be. You're afraid you're never going to get another job, and you're thinking about the people that you were used to being around all the time. And I can't even imagine what it's like to be furloughed in this time. It must be like being on an island in an island chain in the middle of the Pacific Ocean and just feeling like, hello, I'm by myself. And so there are certainly things that you need to do in terms of HR compliance that you should seek guidance for with your whoever's working on HR at your organization. But this is a time to be human and have compassion and reach out to those furloughed employees. Don't pretend that they don't exist anymore. It's the worst feeling. Don't share gossip. Don't say, here's what's happening back at the office and here's what Susie did the other day. Please don't do that. And also, I think please, just let the people who were not furloughed to remind them to treat this person with grace and respect. It's okay. It should be okay. Check with your HR for your employees to reach out to the furloughed employees. Hopefully, they're going to be able to do that anyway. That you're working in a culture that allows for that. And I think a great message that you could give to the people who are not furloughed is, hey, let's work our butts off right now and let's get those people back at the desk. Let's all, get through this together and rebuild this company stronger than ever, and we'll get them back. So we have work to do, and it's not gossip, it's work. That sounded a little preachy.
Well, no, I love that you were on fire about it and reminding us to be human. And it sounded like you incorporated the rally. It could be part of your rally cry to
Yeah,
mobilize the people that are still here, to also be human to those that can't work right now,
yeah,
not
that's
by
good.
choice. So I think that's great.
Yeah.
Last question, Sheri, is what are some of the tools that you're recommending be tools that we keep using when we're back in the office when this is over?
So some of the tools that I'm recommending that we implement now that we might still use after this is over. Yeah.
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 Can we do that? Or what do you recommend we use when we're back in the office and keep using?
Well, I said I was a geek about, strategic planning and execution. So
You are a geek, Sheri,
yes,
but I
thank
love
you.
you.
I'm very, I'm very proud. I wear that very proudly. Um, what a great opportunity to, if you weren't already doing this, if you had a strategic plan. I know that a lot of organizations don't do this well, so don't feel bad if you don't. But if you, let's say that you got through the strategic planning process and you did come up with some goals. Uh, in many cases, I've seen where people do put an inordinate amount of energy and time into creating a strategic plan, and then they put that in a big file somewhere and they file it away and they go back to work. And then at the end of the year, they pull them out and they beat themselves over the head for not achieving their strategic goals, and then they could do it again. Preachy. So what a great opportunity now to think of this temporary rallying cry as your new strategic goal, the most important thing that you need to do to get you through this short-term couple of months. What are the 3 to 5 key objectives? How are we going to track that? PowerPoint, Excel, online cloud-based system, what have you. And then when we get back to work, we'll realize that, man, that tool really helped us focus and communicate and not get off track, because if you're like a lot of organizations, leaders have a tendency to have a new idea every day, and we forget what we set our team to work on at the beginning of the year. So boy, if I had a dream about how we could all become better from this, it is take your strategic goals, your goals from your strategic plan, put them out, make sure that you tie key objectives to those goals, make sure that you can measure those, and then have regular meetings about, are we on track with those goals? Where are we falling behind? Where do we need to marshal our resources, so that we do make sure that we do achieve all of our key goals, and then keep doing that. It's the best. It's so good for helping organizations communicate. And think about if you could trickle those goals all the way down from the very top of the org chart to the individual performance reviews of every employee. What if every employee in your organization knew how the day-to-day work that they do are impacting the key organizational goals? So preachy. I'm so preachy about this.
I love it. I love your fiery side, Sheri. No, this is great content. Thank you so much. Well, I think that's it for our webinar. Thank you all for joining us today. This is really an opportunity for you to show up and show your people who you are. 5 years from now, people are going to remember what you said and did as a leader during this time, even more so than the things that you said, the announcements you made during normal times. So this is an opportunity, this is not a time to sit back, but an opportunity to lean in, as Sheri said. So lead. And finally, we'll be sending out additional communications about our upcoming webinars and announce guest speakers for each of those. We are planning on having Dr. Tony Barron, our co-founder and scholar in residence. He'll be joining us next time. And we'll also have access to a half a dozen leaders, from CEOs with turnaround experience to former Navy SEALs and many others who are ready and able to join us for future webinars. So stay tuned for the announcement of that schedule. And we'll also provide the resources that Sheri mentioned in today's webinar in an email as well. So until then, be safe, everyone, and stay sane. Mm-hmm. And thank you for joining us, and thank you, Sheri, for sharing today.
Thank you. Thank you, Danielle. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.